Good day. What has transpired is not simply a drone strike on Russia. This was the most devastating blow to Russian strategic aviation since June 22nd, 1941. The day that the Soviet Union's ally, Nazi Germany, betrayed the USSR and launched Operation Barbarossa. In just one morning, 84 years ago, 10 to 15% of the Soviet Air Force was destroyed. Now today, almost to the day 84 years later, Russia just lost the same percentage of its strategic strike fleet. This time around, though, it wasn't our world war. It was not NATO. It was Ukraine. Using plywood drones, garage-built launchers, in an operation called Pavutina, Operation Spiderweb, Ukraine destroyed 10 to 15% of the Russian strategic air fleet. So let's put this in perspective. During the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union spent years negotiating the START treaties. Do you recall Reagan, Gorbachev meeting? The result of years of negotiations was to carefully reduce their deployed nuclear forces by 30%. Today, Ukraine erased half that amount in one night. They did not have diplomats and signatures and talks, just fire and wreckage. And this is excellent. Russia must understand that it is not in a position of strength. It must understand that it is in a position of weakness, and it must be put into its place. So let's walk through exactly what occurred and why it matters. But first, my name is Jason Smart. I'm a special correspondent for the Kiev Post. I also happen to be somebody who has studied the Putin regime for 2 decades. Please do me one huge favor. Please like and subscribe to this channel because it helps me get the message of what is truly transpiring inside of Russia and the threat the Putin regime poses to more people. But let's look at specifically what happened inside of Russia. So as I said, what occurred was the largest single-day loss in Russian history in more than 80 years. And we'll go base by base of who was struck and why it matters. So the Alenia Air Base, which is located far north, deep inside of Murmansk Oblast, which is inside or north of the Arctic Circle. So it's a base that once symbolized the Soviet Union's ambitions, its Cold War ambitions. Now it functions as the nerve center of Russia's nuclear bomber fleet. It hosts a number of very important aircraft, specifically the Tupolev-160s, which are called the Blackjacks, the Tupolev-95s, those are the Bears, those are the strategic bombers. And they're not just aircraft. They're the airborne leg of Russia's nuclear triad. They are incredibly important for Russia's nuclear strategy. Now, Ukraine's GUR, its military intelligence, has confirmed and showed satellite images to confirm that at least 4 of the Tupolev-95s, the bombers, were hit. And what we see in those satellite images are violent fireballs, massive debris fields. And this is the sort of wreckage that you typically see when there's a high-octane fuel explosion. Or, for instance, the warheads that were on board exploded. They were destroyed. 2 of the bombers that we see in the photos are now scorched skeletons on the runway. This is not just a symbolic loss for Russia. This is a strategic loss for Russia. Russia's second strike capabilities, the ability to retaliate to a nuclear attack, just lost some of its wings. But wait, there's more. Just 100 kilometers away is the Severomorsk naval base. That's a home of Russia's northern fleet. This is the Arctic heart of Russia's sea-based nuclear deterrent. It has its submarines. It has its command vessels. It has its radar infrastructure. It is really important. But there's something else it has. As of this morning, it has powerful explosions, which were reported across the news in both Russian and Ukrainian language outlets. And it suggests that the target there was a nuclear submarine that was docked at the base. So what eyewitnesses have put online, and you can see on Telegram, the footage that shows plumes of smoke rising over the facility. And you can hear the sound of multiple detonations. Of course, the Russian officials, including the mayor of Severomorsk, have denied that anything occurred. They deny that there was any explosions there. Now, they did acknowledge that there was a drone attack somewhere in the region, but they said, no, everything's under control. Incredibly, of course, the photos and the videos coming out are of normal people who just are shocked to see something blowing up or burning. And they say things to the effect of, the government says nothing is happening, but it appears that the base is on fire. And this aligns with what else we saw. So there were reports that the attacks in the region were not just against the submarines, as I said, but also the strategic aviation. This is not just some sort of deep penetration. This is an intentional, well-planned, well-executed, dual-pronged strike against Russia's Arctic Base Command. Air and sea were both hit on the same night in the same region. Now, according to reports that have come out so far, the Ukrainians spent more than a year and a half planning this attack. And it didn't stop at those two bases. It continued. The Dyagolov Air Base, which is in Ryazan Oblast, that hosts the Tupolev-22s, which are the backfire Cs, their long-range bombers, and the Ilyushin 78s, the Midases. They're the aerial refueling tankers. Why they're so important? Together, they are what Russia uses to extend its strike range deep inside of NATO territory. They are key for that. So, according to Russia's military bloggers, pro-Russian people who are accredited to go hang out with the Russian military and report what they see, who, surprisingly enough, have more freedom to report what is going on than you would possibly imagine, they're reporting that two of the Ilyushin 78s were destroyed, that one of the Tupolev 22s was severely damaged. Now, what does that mean in real terms? It means without refueling tankers, those bombers cannot reach their targets. Russia's strategic aviation has lost its reach. And then the Ivanovo Severny base, the air base northeast of Moscow, it got hit. Ukraine targeted and destroyed one of Russia's most advanced assets, the Beriev A-50s, the mainstays. Now, those are the airborne early warning and control aircraft. And it's not just flying radar. It's not just like AWACS. It's a mobile command post, and it tracks enemy bombers. It coordinates intercepts. It manages airspace command. And how much does it cost? How much does one of these A-50s go for? Well, about $330 million. It's questionable if Russia has the capacity to produce them anymore, but it costs $330 million. And with it, Russia's ability to monitor the skies in real time was just destroyed. So we see across Russia, from the Arctic frontier to the capital, Ukraine didn't just destroy hardware arbitrarily. It was severing the command links. They have disoriented Russia's systems. They simply unplugged the Kremlin's military nervous system. But they didn't stop there. No. They continued. They went after the Belaya Air Base, which is in Irkutsk, Siberia. So it supports the Tupolev 22s, the backfire Cs, the bombers that patrol the Pacific and cover Russia's eastern front. 3 of those bombers were destroyed. Incredibly, we can verify this and geolocate it, thanks to civilians who posted videos onto TikTok. And those videos show remarkable explosions. They just rip through the night skies. You see fuel depots burning. You see hangars collapsing. And what we see further, if we want to analyze it, is Russia's power projection in the Pacific being crippled. But it doesn't stop there. The attack was even bigger than that. Because then came the Voskresensk Air Base, which is also just outside of Moscow. Now that base, of course, has been a long time inactive. A lot of people thought it was not doing anything. It was retired. But no, quietly, Moscow had started to reactivate it. And we saw that recently it become more of a logistics hub. It was being used to support airborne troops and rapid response deployments. But that got hit. Ukrainian intelligence has said that it struck an Ilyushin 76 Candid, which is one of the heavy transport aircrafts. And sure enough, when you look at the footage coming from that site, fire gutted the center of the airframe. And that is something that Russia certainly was not expecting to see. But it's also the supply lines that were hit. So Ukraine did not just stop at the first attack with Severomorsk. it came back again. This time around, the target wasn't the general command. It was nuclear. Using drones, FPVs, first-person view drones, that were equipped with thermal artificial intelligence, Ukraine struck radar systems, antenna arrays, fuel tanks, all with surgical precision. Unlike Russia, Ukraine does not strike civilian targets. It is hitting military targets. And when you look at what we see in the satellite images, it's very clear. There's total destruction across the Western docks. And in at least one of the widely discussed and geolocated videos that's come out, we see something incredibly important. Project Delphin, which is a class nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarine, appears to have sustained visible external damage while docked there. Now, it's probably not a secret, a nuclear submarine that has damage, it doesn't go back to the water anytime soon. It needs to be fixed, and that takes time. It takes a lot of time. But more than that, it's not just one more submarine that got hit. This destabilizes Russia's entire nuclear strategy. It has a limited number of submarines that are seaworthy. It has a limited ability to project strength. This is important for Russia because ultimately these warships are the final line of nuclear deterrence. They are the very backbone of that nuclear deterrence. They are its sea-based second strike capabilities. And now that backbone has been fractured. All told, this one-night operation has damaged or destroyed approximately 10 to 15% of Russia's nuclear delivery platforms, either directly or indirectly by going after the support infrastructure. The loss of multiple Tupolev 95s, Tupolev 22s, the Beref A50s, the Ilyushin 78s, the refueling tankers, and potentially a Delphin-class submarine represents a historic blow. In fact, it's estimated that the total cost is between $3.1 to $3.4 billion of losses. And it degrades both Russia's first strike options, such as those that they typically use for strategic intimidation, and its second strike guarantees. The system designed to survive and retaliate to a nuclear attack. So in practical terms, though, what does this mean? Russia's ability to launch a large-scale air-based nuclear attack against NATO is now constrained greatly. It has been reduced. Its reach has been reduced. It is now has significant radar blindness. It has limitations on getting fuel to these bombers. Its capacity to pressure Ukraine with long-range conventional cruise missiles was also given a significant setback. So this is not just about metal on the tarmac burning. This is about doctrine. This is about mutually assured destruction. MAD. And suddenly it looks a lot less assured from the Kremlin side. And this signals something even deeper, which is that Ukraine's ingenuity, its precision, and its reach have pierced what was once thought to be the impermeable armor of the Russian nuclear state. Today was a historic day. And what's incredible is that it proves what we already knew. If we stop tying Ukraine's arms behind its back and allow Ukraine to strike Russian targets as necessary for Ukraine's national security concerns and defense, it will have amazing results. And it changes the entire dynamic of this war. It puts Russia on a back foot. Russia no longer is able to aggress as it has for 3.5 years. But unfortunately, people who have said, but it might have escalation, but it might start World War III, and it might start a nuclear war. This nonsense, absolute nonsense, has allowed thousands of people to die unnecessarily. The fact is, Russia today is in chaos. There has been emergency meetings in the Duma, the parliament of Russia. They're looking for scapegoats as to who's responsible. The military leadership is already blaming the FSB, which is the Russian security services, the former KGB, for this, saying that they're behind why this occurred, that they didn't stop it. Already, the Russians are looking everywhere for scapegoats. Internal fighting has become significant. All this destabilizes the Russian military and the Russian intelligence services which thereby destabilizes Russia's war against Ukraine, which is ultimately just part of a larger war against us. Please like and subscribe. More updates will be coming. But liking and subscribing helps me greatly to get the truth about the Kremlin and the threat that it poses to global peace to more people. I appreciate you watching. Thank you. And thank you always for supporting Ukraine.